my daughter, and this is my son.
And who's your favourite, would you say?
Perfect. So I just want to say thank you again for your interview. And since you're here, what I'd like to ask you, how you think the experience of your mother has shaped your life, or, whether it was the past has sort of been a topic and maybe has come back more or less, or, yeah.
I think the past has always been very important to my mother, particularly because of her very good memory and the fact that our grandmother lived with us, so it was and who was also directly affected by everything. So that has always, the history of our family has always been part of our everyday life, and my mother has been a loyal custodian of all the fallen relatives, which is how I think it should be. And she's taught us the importance of remembering our relatives and everything that happened.
So, and I don't know, I think as regards her migration, it was just, this is by chance, but it was a very good preparation for the life that we've come to experience in Britain. India, 9 years in India, it was always in the background, and it was a very fond time for my mother. So fond stories of India.
And generally, I think it was because of the different countries that both my parents had lived in. It was a sort of cosmopolitan upbringing, because we had sort of exposure to lots of different cultures and cultural influences.
And it was great having German in the background, because we always had a secret code.
Yeah.
We could laugh about people without them realising. That was very, very practiced, wasn't it? When we went to places, all the comments about people that we wanted to keep secret were in German when we were out.
And did you all speak German? I'm quite surprised.
Yes, because of my grandmother who lived with us, and we spoke. It's fair to say my grandmother, she was a wonderful woman, but she was not a linguist. And she if there was a mistake to be made in the language, she used to make it. Just as one example, the favourite probably the example, she was reading an article in the newspaper about Bing Crosby, and she came into my mother and she said in German that Bing Crosby is saying that people think he's wealthy, but he isn't that wealthy because he's given it all to his uncle. And my mother sort of looked at the article, and Bing Crosby had said, "I haven't got much money left. Uncle Sam's got it all." but so my grandmother spoke German to us, and so we learnt German without us even knowing that we were learning a second language. So we were, at that time, we were sort of more or less bilingual.
Right.
This is my son, he's Gerald Stern, and he was born on the 28th of May 1955, and he's my only son, and I have a daughter as well.
Okay. Thank you. Gerald, you've listened to your father's testimony. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, just that growing up, I suppose that this whole issue was always the elephant in the room. We had grandparents on my mother's side, none on my father's side. And I remember my bar mitzvah, when my father stood up to speak and became very upset because he remembered his own bar mitzvah. And I was asked about family and was told that they were all killed.
The lady on my left is my lovely daughter, Jacqueline Ann Danson. And the gentleman on my right is my lovely nephew, Peter Boswell.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask you both, Jacqueline and Peter, you've been listening in to the interviews. Is there anything you would like to comment or add to your answer to your mother's story? Jacqueline, would you like to start?
Sure. I would first of all like to say how proud I am to be part of your community, and I would also like to say that for all the dreadful events of the war, something good has come of it, because I would not be your child if it were not for that.
True.
And so I'm very grateful for that, and I'm very grateful for my being completely as if I were a biological child, have been brought into your wonderful community, which is a huge privilege. And to add to what you were saying about our view of German and Germany, I very much consider myself part German, and that's because of the wonderful aspects of Germany. That they weren't all wonderful, but there's the culture, the food and the language, and you've brought me up with those, and they're part of who I am, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud to be the daughter, adopted daughter, feeling the same as a biological daughter of German Jewish parents and wonderful people such as you and Daddy. So,
Ruth, is there anything you'd like to say to your daughter?
Thank you all, not only my daughter and my Peter here, my nephew, also for you that you took this enormous trouble to take my story
thank you, we
onto the
appreciate it.
AJR.
It means a
I
lot.
really think that is fantastic.
My grandmother came over on Kindertransport in 1939 from Vienna. She left her family and came over. She met another political refugee from Vienna, who she didn't know in Vienna, but was actually from a couple of miles away. George Skrine, who was my grandfather. They met at a Austrian club and fell in love and got married and had my father. And so the Second World War, the Holocaust, was always something which was very present in our family, although something that was not spoken about, at least with my grandparents. But you could always feel the shadow of it, and it was something that me and my brothers and sisters were kind of fascinated with when we were in school and we were learning about the Second World War. We knew we had this personal family connection to it. We just didn't really know the details. And we would go round, and when we'd have dinner, we would ask them. My grandfather would speak more about it, but they would never speak in personal terms.